This vlog is jam-packed because I haven't vlogged in a while. 2 fitness expos, LA Fit, Arnold. There's a bodybuilding session with my Strong Fit colleague, Robin, and something else. Oh, the Strong Fit nutrition protocol. What the hell is it? Why did I decide to start doing it? And what am I eating? All right, buckle up, here we go. This is Robin. She is super mega strong, super nice. She is part of the Strong Fit tribe and she likes cats. We probably spent about 3 hours at the gym. We had so much fun trying pretty much every single damn piece of equipment there was, and we called it Pilates bodybuilding. Why? Well, because when you're in the machines, you can really concentrate on stabilizing your pelvis and spine. So it's a Pilates session all at the same time as doing bodybuilding. You know, Pilates is the reason why I can do the splits. And you're like, huh? What? Why? Yeah. Because when you can stabilize your spine and pelvis, it allows your hips to move more freely. I would like to recall statements I made about the importance of training your hip flexors. Remember when I went on the psoas bandwagon? Now I realize that the psoas, the hip flexors, can be a crutch for weak low abs. And I think it's more important to focus on strengthening the low abs so that you don't compensate with the hip flexors for a weak core. And then I do one of those picture-in-picture voiceovers. It's super fancy stuff. This is my favorite low abs exercise because I know you're gonna ask. The key here is not to use your hip flexors to flex at the hip, but rather to pretend I Botox them so you actually are paralyzed there. So your only option to flex your hip is to use your low abs. So if you want to learn pistol squats, then pay attention to the next series of exercises and do them. Next, isolation movements for the quads and inner hamstrings, internal torque. So we're working one limb at a time. And I'm palpating my VMO to make sure I'm actually using it. I want to show you a trick I do once I reach failure for the hamstring curl. Notice how I do a cheater's rep. So I auto assist the movement using my other leg and then slowly lower eccentrically. So that way I can go to true failure. Next, a reverse origin insertion leg press machine because the chair is moving instead of the platform. So Robin has a low foot placement on the platform, and this is because we specifically want to target the quad, the VMO. She's palpating her low abs to make sure she's using them instead of using the hip flexors to raise the other leg. Now she's scaling this movement by bending the knee on the other leg. You're going to see me demonstrate it with the leg straight. If you feel cramps going all the way down your thigh, that's a sign that you're compensating with your hip flexors for weak low abs, which is why you need to do Pilates. So you'll see how I flex my leg just like in a pistol squat. In fact, it looks exactly like a pistol squat, doesn't it? So this is a really great way to train the pistol squat. When I fling my leg up like this, I'm using my low abs, so I have no symptoms in the front of my thigh. I like to palpate my low abs when I do this. It helps me maintain lumbopelvic stability. Oh my goodness, there was this really cool trapeze at the Global Gym. So this is a really great way to illustrate to you that this is all low abs. So I feel nothing in my quads or hip flexors when I'm doing this. And this is all thanks to all the Pilates I do. One of my favorite ways to really learn how to feel the inner hamstring is with low sandbag Dimmel deadlifts. Now, I create a deficit just because I am very mobile and it's sport-specific training. Obviously, I need to be able to generate copious amounts of tension at extreme end ranges for the type of circus things I'm learning. So I would suggest if you're new to this, that you work within the range of motion you have, be respectful. You obviously won't be setting up a deficit like I do, and just focus on the bottom range of the movement that you do have. I did not just instantly learn how to feel my inner hamstrings the first time I tried. This has been literally a 2-year odyssey for me to get to this point. Next, deficit sissy squats to target the VMOs. You're like, what's a VMO? The vastus medialis oblique. It's the inner quad. And for me, it's weaker on the right side. So that's why I like to pay extra attention to my weaker side. And that is by definition an imbalance when there's a discrepancy between the right and the left side. And obviously that's going to have an impact on your performance, and it can even contribute to symptoms. We really wanted to use the Smith machine for the deficit sissy squats, but it was occupied. So we ended up just doing partial weight bearing. We hang on to the sides of the rack just so that we don't splat. So you can see we put a yoga block between the thighs, and this is to really remind us to torque in and activate the VMOs. And you can see she's going nice and slow. And if you notice, this actually looks exactly like the knee extension machine. It's just closed kinetic chain instead of being open kinetic chain, which is actually a lot more friendly on the knees, especially for people who do have knee problems. It'd be better to start with a closed kinetic chain exercise instead of open. So there's a lot less shearing forces on the knee joint with the closed kinetic chain, which is why it's a little bit more friendly for people who do have knee symptoms. Now, I used to have horrific knee pain, so doing open kinetic chain exercises was So I initially started with partial weight bearing closed kinetic chain exercises. It's really all about scaling movements, not being afraid to be partial weight bearing or using really light weight, not being afraid to work within really tiny ranges of motion, respect what you have, and realize it's all about feeling the muscle firing. It's not about how many sets and reps you do and how cool you look. Because if you are willing to ditch your ego and start from scratch, oh my goodness, over time, you are going to become a beast. I think that if you can see the transformation that I've had on myself just by experimenting on myself, being my own guinea pig for the past 2.5 years, it's obvious that I figured out some things along the way. So you can learn a lot from somebody who's done things maybe not ideally and then figured out a better way. Next, this is to target the glute max, the inner hamstrings, and we did it unilaterally because it forces us to stabilize the spine and pelvis, thereby making this the most ultimate Pilates exercise of all time. Notice my other leg is straight. This is for all the peeps out there who want to learn pistol squats. Now notice how Robin put the yoga block between my thighs, and I'm doing an isometric hold at the end range. So if you're struggling with your hinge, I suggest you start doing isometric end range holds. Next, my favorite machine in Globo Gyms, really hard to find this, the overhead triceps machine. You'll notice I do a lot of my exercises unilaterally, and that's because, well, I'm trying to overcome imbalances. To quote Mike Rashid, one of my fitness influencer colleagues, you can't bullshit yourself when you do things unilateral. You can see we discovered here, the left triceps needs a lot more work. So that's the value in doing unilateral work as well as using machines you don't normally use that put you in more extreme positions like an overhead position. The super pull over machine, Dorian Yates' favorite way to target the lats. Now, it's not what you do, but rather how you do it. So the way I'm sitting in the machine, I was actually more interested in targeting my teres majors. And because I do it unilaterally, you can see how this instantly becomes a Pilates exercise because it forces you to stabilize your spine and pelvis. So that's how you can kill 2 flies with 1 shoe, 2 birds with 1 stone. I freaking love Robin, and I can't wait to go back to Los Angeles and do that again with her. So much fun.
Francine, do you think I can eat that banana? It looks like it's not ripe.
Oh, hello. Oh, you are. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, Sarah needs a ripe banana.
BSN! 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 Steal the show! Steal the show! Who wants to steal the show? I'm gonna say it again. Who wants to steal the show?
My favorite person on Instagram right here.
Sound like a giant Brachiosaurus Rex. But one of my followers popped by the booth today and gave me a present. Do you want to see? I'm going to show you anyway, so. It's a vibrating, oh, get your mind out of the gutter. It's one of those vibrating foam rollers I've always wanted. And my favorite perfume, j'adore. Ah, j'adore ça, c'est très good.
I've decided I'm doing the Strong Fit diet. Don't panic, I'm still doing intermittent fasting. So this is an experiment for me, and I'm excited to share what happens with you. This is my very first day. So here are my stats for day 1. This is what I looked like today and my weight. The concept here is that your diet will influence your gut flora. What you eat is obviously going to have an impact on your state. So this is a bit foreign for me because I've always followed a high carb, high protein, low fat diet. So now I'm basically doing the complete opposite. I'm going to be following more of a lower carb, higher fat, lower protein diet. Right now I'd say the hardest part for me is the change. I'm just used to doing things a certain way for so long. But one thing I've learned from Strong Fit is actually the importance of taking a look at what you've done all along and asking yourself, okay, is this optimal? Or do you just think it is because it's what you've always done? So I'm definitely willing to experiment. I mean, that's why there's sandbags in my living room. However, I don't see how I could pull this off, say if I go to a friend's for dinner or to a restaurant, because the reality is most recipes and most food are a mixture of all 3 macronutrients. And obviously when you consume all 3 macronutrients at the same time, it's going to mix signals. And yeah, that's a big deal because it will impede what's going to get digested. It's not about the food ingested, but rather the food digested. What you eat will obviously have an impact on your nervous system. So carbs will elicit a sympathetic response, whereas protein and fat, more specifically saturated fat, will trigger a parasympathetic nervous system reaction. So that's where carbs as a fuel would come in handy. If say you don't feel like training, you could consume some carbs before the training, or if you're having difficulty during the training session, you could have some intra carbs, or if it's a killer session, then you could consume carbs after the workout to help you get out of flight mode. Now I do fast all morning and all afternoon, and that does trigger the sympathetic nervous system. So when I do break my fast, it's typically carbs because that's when I'm going to train. If I'm doing work, then I would have fats because that's going to help me get into a mental focus. And then before bed, I would consume protein, which will help me fall asleep at night. And thanks to Julian, he ruined my chili recipe. I had to remove the beans. So yeah, this has been a bit of a pain in the arse, but you know, I'll figure it out. So right now my goal is to get used to this whole new approach and get a groove and discover the foods and recipes that make this as seamless a transition as possible for me. And my other goal is to stop using food to hide behavior that I don't want to change for myself. So I want to be a little bit more self-aware of my own state and what I can do to ameliorate that as opposed to relying on food to do that for me. I confess that for years and years and years, I've been guilty of using food as a crutch to change my behavior. So for example, let's say you're bored, so you just eat because you're bored. Now don't get too excited about the food I'm going to show you because I'm not exactly the most wonderful cook in the world. This is what Julian always eats. It has 4.5 grams of saturated fat per serving. Oh, it's pork. But you just don't eat pork. I'm not the same person I used to be before I started Strong Fit back in December 2000. How do you open it? I can't open it. Just, Jesus Christ. I mean cheese and rice. As I was saying, I'm not the same person. It looks like bacon. Can you see it? How about now? I don't hate it. I actually might like it. But I'm not used to eating pork. This better not give me the backdoor trots. Saturated fat, people. Look at me being in the center. Nothing extreme here. If my gut flora could talk right now, I'm pretty sure it would say, who the hell got this monkey to make changes to her diet? I also stopped taking acidophilus probiotics as per Julian's recommendation because you're introducing aliens into your gut flora that perhaps could wreak havoc or perhaps not. We don't know. I already know your next question. How many grams of that did you eat? What are your calories and macros? I don't know. Don't ask. I also don't care. It boils down to what you're actually digesting. I've never been much of a cheese person. You can see it has 4 grams of saturated fat. I don't hate the cheese.
This is really creamy. It's very good. 4 grams of saturated fat, and you can see it has negligible carbs and protein. Halloumi. Can you see it? How about now? It has 5 grams of saturated fat and negligible carbs. Perfect. I was lucky enough to have Protein Chefs sponsor me with some meals, so I'm gonna save the steak for tonight. That's high in protein and saturated fats. Difficult to digest. Will put me to sleep. I took the fingerling potatoes and veggies out because I'm going to have that now. I guess you could consider this my post-workout reward. People, I'm having veggies. I actually like to peel my bananas, wrap them in saran wrap, and put them in the freezer. It turns them into banana-sicles. Well, I don't think you thought that through now, did you?
All right, I've talked enough. Thanks for watching. I love you guys, and until next time, bye.